Good evening and welcome to this edition of The List on UWW-TV. I'm Brooke Souls.
And I'm Liv Yost. For the next few minutes, we'll present our top 5 sports stories of the week and discuss why they made the top 5. Did your top 5 make our list? Let's find out. At number 5, the Warhawks softball team is off to an incredible start on their season. They went undefeated on their spring trip and swept Carroll University in their doubleheader, forcing the run rule in Game 1, 8-0 in 6 innings, and defeating the Pioneers 10-3 in the second game. Brooke, what's been the reason for the Warhawks' success to start the season?
Thank you, Liv. Definitely one of the key factors to their success this season has been dominant pitching. They have consistently been limiting those scoring opportunities for the other schools that they have played. And again, that's been heavily highlighted in their game against Carroll this last weekend, along with their explosive offense. And again, this has shown consistency, and this was a big power for the Lady Warhawks. Again, this was highlighted in their game against Endicott, scoring 4 runs in the first inning alone. I think one of the things we can also highlight, obviously, is their team chemistry. It is pretty clear that the Lady Warhawks get along on and off the field, and they just know how to play as a team. The next thing that they can do to stay hot throughout their season is stay aggressive on offense. Adjusting to those different pitching strategies can just be essential for their success this season. So yeah, I think that staying aggressive on defense is significant as well. At number 4, NFL free agency continues to run wild as we move closer and closer to the NFL draft. The Giants have bolstered their quarterback room by adding Jameis Winston on a 2-year deal and Russell Wilson on a 1-year deal. The Patriots added a weapon for Drake May by signing former All-Pro wide receiver Stefon Diggs with a 3-year contract. Liv, how do these moves impact these teams?
Yeah, I think it's huge for this Giants team to kind of get that veteran in Russell Wilson for their young core. They need to be consistent in their training with Jameis Winston before they can look to a big playmaker at the quarterback position. I think Russell Wilson will definitely do that for them. He brings in a lot of consistency, and he will dramatically improve their offense. As for Stefon Diggs, he's going to help Drake May's progression into becoming that franchise quarterback for the Patriots. I think his hands and his ability to, you know, get through games with high numbers and high statistics will be really helpful for Drake May as he's trying to develop into that great quarterback for the Patriots. His leadership on the field and off the field will be big for trying to get May into that comfortable position. But I think that he will definitely be a big impact to their offense, especially for the AFC East because they have a few powerhouses in that conference already. So I definitely see that Diggs will make a big impact to their offense. And also Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston will look to improve that quarterback room. And at number 3, Bucks superstar point guard Damian Lillard is out indefinitely due to a blood clot in his right calf. According to the team, Lillard is on blood-thinning medication, which has stabilized the clot. However, it is unclear if Lillard will play again this season. The Bucks are currently fighting for a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference and trying to avoid playing in the play-in tournament. Brooke, will the NBA playoffs right around the corner? How will the Bucks be able to continue their push to the playoffs without Lillard?
That definitely is tough for the Bucks, but I do think they are able to maybe get there. Without Lillard, this definitely has a fall for them. Unfortunately, they will be easier matchups in the East Conference play. They obviously want to avoid the play-in, but they're going to have to prove themselves if they find themselves there later in the season. Unfortunately, this is another disappointing year for the Bucks after winning the chip 4 years ago. And now they're on the same level as the Magic and Hawks, and they're going to need to prove themselves to get out of the kind of middleman league there. Some players that really need to step up for the Bucks would be Kyle Kuzma. He was acquired at the trade deadline and averages roughly about 20 points a game, and he'll be heavily relied on to create more open shots. Another player would be Bobby Portis. Once he's back from suspension, he will be big for rebounding and putting up those easy shots. And lastly, Kevin Porter Jr. Offensively, he's very strong. But Liv, where do you think that the Bucks will end up, later in the season?
Yeah, right now they're at the 6th seed, and I don't think they want to stay there by any means. They don't want to be in that kind of middleman group where they have to kind of fight to prove themselves. And without Dame, it's going to be a lot more difficult to kind of get out of that little slump that they're in now. So we're going to see what they can do to kind of bring themselves up in the rankings, either a high 5 or, unfortunately, we'll see if they can avoid that 7 seed.
Yeah, Liv, I agree. But we've got more coming up on the list, including a discussion on Selection Sunday and NFL free agency. We'll be right back.
We'd love to show you what it's like to be a Warhawk.
Come on!
Don't miss out on your chance to be a Warhawk.
At UW Whitewater.
You belong here.
Matt checking in to see how Sam is doing on his project, and it's getting close to exporting now, the final step in the process. And it is complete, and Sam is hyped. Finally gets complete and spikes the ball into the end zone. Sam's celebrating with his colleagues, and they throw a flag on the play. The ref's going to call excessive celebration. Sam is in disbelief and can't believe it. He tries to dispute the call, but the ref is not having any of it.
She's always had it. Pure ambition. An unbridled self-confidence that most people only dream of. You see it driving her, empowering her, and in time, you see it fueling her future. Perhaps even helping her blaze a new trail. All she needs now is a way to make it happen. We are the Universities of Wisconsin. 13 universities. Unlimited opportunity.
Sports fans. We pack stadiums, arenas, and local gyms every day. And every sports fan is uniquely human. Seeing each play with your own eyes, triggering your own emotions. And as humans, we won't agree on every call, but we can act with empathy and consideration. So put yourself in the official shoes. Be more than a fan. Be officially human.
Welcome back to the list on UWW-TV. Let's continue the countdown to this week's top sports stories. At number 2, the 2025 MLB season is officially underway. All 30 MLB teams begin the journey to possibly winning the World Series. So far, we've seen walk-offs, incredible plays, and historical performances, both good and bad. Liv, what stood out to you from opening weekend?
Yeah, I think it's hard to look at opening weekend without talking about this Yankees team who hit 9 home runs in Game 2 against the Brewers. A record of most home runs in an opening series, 15 home runs in the first 3 games alone. We got Aaron Judge and Cody Bellinger going off against those teams and kind of showing what they can do for this Yankees squad. And the Dodgers look to two-peat this year with a 5-0 good start on the season. Ohtani had 2 home runs and 6 hits. The Baltimore Orioles offense was on full display against the Blue Jays, hitting 6 home runs. The Brewers, the Braves, and the Red Sox are all off to surprisingly slow starts with a combined record of 1-10. As for our hometown teams, the Cubs, the Sox, and the Brewers, Brooke, what do you have to say?
For somebody who's from Illinois, the Cubs honestly they're nothing special this season, unfortunately. They're 2-4. The White Sox surprisingly are at a good start. They're 2-2. Michael A. Taylor looked pretty good today. They've had 2 losses, but they won or lost by 1 each game, so pretty good. They won games against the Angels by 7, and then they also shut down the Twins today, 9-0. The Brewers not having a good start so far. They're 0-4. Nestor Cortez gave up 5 home runs in 1 game to the Yankees. So pretty not great.
And for our top story of the week, the Final Four is set for the men's NCAA tournament. For the first time since 2008 and the second time ever, all 4 teams in the Final Four are the number 1 seeds in the tournament. The Florida Gators will take on the Auburn Tigers, and the Duke Blue Devils will play the Houston Cougars. Brooke, who is going to the championship game, and who is going to win it all?
Thanks, Liv. Yeah, so we are looking at Florida versus Auburn. Next to Cooper Flagg, Florida might have the biggest star left in the tournament, Walter Clayton Jr. His talent could be the deciding factor in whether the Gators beat Auburn, and win the title ultimately. We also have Johnny Broome. He took an awkward fall on Sunday, left to the locker room, but he did come back out only after 5 minutes of gameplay. He seems healthy enough to perform, but he will need to be at 110% to compete with Florida's talent. Liv, what do you think about Duke versus Houston?
I think this is going to be quite a show for this Final Four game. Duke, I think, is going to take it all with Cooper Flagg. Obviously, has 19.5 points per game, 7.8 rebounds, and 5.3 assists per game. He is just killing it on both ends of the floor. He's leading this Duke team only as a freshman, and we're going to look for him to get that number 1 pick in the NBA draft. As for Houston, their defense and consistent 3-point shooting is the reason they've made it so far and the reason they got that number 1 seed. But I'm still going to take Duke no matter what all day against this Houston offense and defense. But Duke is going to have a challenge in this Houston team and this Cougar team. And I think it's going to all come down to who can take off in the beginning and keep a lead throughout and be consistent.
Thank you, Liv. Yeah, I agree. I think Duke will take it all. But that will do for this edition of The List. We'll be back next week to talk up the sports headlines. I'm Brooke Souls.
And I'm Liv Yost. See you next week for more stories on UWW TV.